Uncle Trump has one shot, one opportunity to stop the death of America. One moment with the freedom of interest, but with DC writ, yo. Vivek's palms are sweaty, six big job gets heavy. There's curry on his sweater already, mom's tandoori. He's nervous, but DOD is getting order ready to drop bombs, cause he gon' got the fat with Eddie. He goes down, DC crowd cries so loud. He opens his mouth, the words you find just come out. They choking now, we the people joking now. The clock's run out, time's up, over, bow. Snap back, DOD, lock, they swing gravity. Oh, grab your up, was he choke? He's so ready, no boast, make it look easy. No, he works at it, he knows he'll push him in. Gotta keep him alive. Stand together, start World War III, make America great again.
Good day, freedom-loving patriots. My name is Anastasia Theodoropoulos. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Richard Panzer. And today we have Jeffrey Kerr with us, who is the founder and president of Kerr Financial Group. Prior to that, he worked at the independent financial services firm as a financial advisor. And Jeff is also a founding member in the Pennsylvania Patriot Coalition and United PA. And we welcome him today to the show to find out how we can invest our money and make money. We are in the golden era, I hear. Yes. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
Great, because the markets, it seems, are doing very well.
Right.
Why is that?
The several things I think that are coming together. One is that there is, a lot of uncertainty that, at the beginning of the year, new administration, trying to get his, cabinet put together, and a lot of doubt surrounding that, and a new agenda. And then you get into the springtime, and then, March, talking about the tariffs and all the uncertainty and unknowns of what's going to happen with that. And the markets took, a step down because, those risks. And then also, I think there were issues and concerns about the deficits and the government spending and what are we going to do about these things. So since the April kind of time frame where the pinnacle or inflection point, I believe, of the tariff scare, there's been some reassurance. And I think the markets are kind of looking at, okay, these large unknowns are no longer in the equation. That's not to say things are that great. There's always concerns. There's always issues. And, inflation seems to be under control. The narrative was, hey, tariffs are going to cause inflation to go double digits. And that has. And as I put on one of my videos recently, a couple of interesting statistics. Japanese automobile exporting have lowered their prices in May and in June. So they're taking the bite. And I don't know if you've seen Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, was on an interview. Several weeks ago, and I forgot what it was, but his claim was that according to one of the Chinese newspapers and magazines and periodicals, the Chinese source, the Chinese estimated their manufacturing would absorb at least on average 65%.
Really?
So,
still make a profit.
And apparently. And so, these kind of things are now more of a background. And they're not, and they're not the chief concern. So I think the markets are, investors are looking past that. And they're also looking, okay, we get the big, beautiful bill passed. Now, whether that's good or bad, maybe it's debatable, but the uncertainty of it not passing is now gone. Right? So businesses now can plan. Right. And businesses can now, hire if they want to. Whatever those, make investments, as well as, again, the onshoring of manufacturing like that. I think that, again, a lot of these things, they're peace breaking out. Right? Certainly we have, Ukraine, and we still have, but, the Middle East seems to be calming down, Africa, right? And Trump's initiatives, may be making progress in that area. And again, so the landscape for investing is, calmer.
I mean, it was amazing to see how the tech hype, like Silicon Valley, supported Trump, or many, not all, obviously many of them did, right? Which was shocking to me because, Silicon Valley is ultra left.
Right.
But somehow, I guess they
Pro
thought,
business.
Well, I think Anastasia got it right. It's, what's best for them at that point.
Right.
What's the administration? How can I benefit from that? I think it's more of
I
a,
guess chaos is not good for business.
right,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
here's the other thing, because the regular folks who are, paying their mortgage and paying their bills, guess what they're realizing? You're going to the gas station, the gas has dropped.
Right.
You could actually almost afford eggs now. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah.
So we're experiencing a little bit of that golden era
Right.
that we were hoping to get, which is just having reasonable expectations for buying and supporting your family and being able to pay your bills. So now, ultimately, that worry is kind of lifted, which means, okay, I might have a couple of bucks left over.
Yeah.
How do I make 2 nickels into a quarter, right? For our kids, for our
Right.
grandkids.
Right. Well, there's so many dynamics, I think, with this decision-making process, and a lot of it's individual risk tolerances and what their needs are to grow assets and like that. So it becomes, again, an individual conversation. However, having said that, though, there are opportunities, I think, across the markets in fixed income or even in the stock market, international market, and like that. So again, it ends up being, there are some mutual fund things that maybe get started with. And I think one of the key questions, sometimes is, when do I get started? Hey, I've got this, this pool of assets, but I can't be too risky with it and like that. And just as we spoke about, so far in 2025, where there were so many unknowns, but maybe that was a time in hindsight. It was a time to kind of get started. So I think that my recommendation in a broad brush, which is kind of dangerous, is get started with a little bit.
Right.
Don't put your whole nest egg at risk, but there are avenues of for opportunities and some things that you can do, and then continue with that plan or that process.
Right.
Would you also say the safer options are long term and they bring you probably the least amount of return? So you're looking at the market and you're looking at things that fluctuate
Right.
that could possibly bring you in, a greater return. So, what is the key? Is the key because I think people think, do I have to do this myself? And I
Right.
don't really know about these things. I may be a business. I'll take myself for example. I'm a business person. I have assets. Okay. Do I have money in the bank? Not a whole lot.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
everything is spread out.
Yeah.
Right? So I want to make that investment, but I also want to make sure that I have something there that I can use in case of a rainy day.
Yeah, and I think you touched upon the one of the important components is the timeline. Do I need the money in 6 months, or is this money that I don't need for 10, 20 years? And those type of decisions, are different because it could be a shorter time frame. And I deal with this a lot, on a regular basis. Is that okay? I need the money in 18 months for this particular project or decision or whatever. And during that, so those assets, can't be necessarily put at risk. And then there are other times where, there's really no immediate need, or I need to, save for my toddler's college or, retirement in 30 years or 15 years even. And those type of, that approach, you try to strive for more, risk, but also more growth and opportunity over time. And, those type of things, again, going back, it's kind of an individual decision, but it's a conversation and like that. And you touched upon, a lot of people do it by themselves and are somewhat successful, and that's fine. But I think also getting some of the, continue, if you're trying to do it by yourself, continue to try to educate yourself. And the markets are always changing. Get off on a little bit of a tangent, but it's remarkable how, 20 years ago, it was a lot of research and looking at now it's all computerized. It's algorithmic. I mean, so much of the trading is done on computer decisions, not human logic or looking at the headlines or like that. Certainly, though the economy and the headlines and like that have an impact over time, but it's amazing in the shorter term or intermediate term how much is driven by algorithms and like that.
It's very interesting, and I think what we've experienced because of COVID, and particularly with our friends, family members who are on fixed incomes, who have retired and have a certain amount of Social Security coming in, and a certain amount from the pension, and then when everything went through the roof, a lot of them could barely make it. They had to make hard decisions.
Right.
Do I sell my house that I love?
Yeah.
Do I downsize?
Yeah.
These are not the situations one would want to be after working very hard their entire lives and retiring.
Right.
So what should we look at? Because none of us are getting any younger.
I think to try to develop a plan and try to develop fits your needs, and then try to stick with it. And the markets and the dynamics are going to continue to change. The economy is going to continue to change. The geopolitical stuff is going to continue to change, and that all has somewhat of an impact on the capital markets. Stocks, bonds, gold, and all that. And there are opportunities. Always kind of seems to be opportunities out there. But to kind of come back and try to answer that question, it's a mix, and I think that you need to kind of continue to, again, define what your needs are, define what your objectives and what your risk tolerance is, and then try to fit that into an asset, allocation and a plan. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think that's probably why, I think very few people can probably do it on their own because there's a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
And I think that's why some people don't do it because they're scared
of doing it. And that's human nature, right? We're talking about we're all human, and we kind of get influenced by some wrong things or fear or whatever grips us and like that, and it's hard to get through sometimes. And one of the questions I ask people regularly is what is it that was going to cause you to lose sleep? And if we're in, say that, the account or the portfolio is structured a certain way, and I said, if you're worried about this and it's keeping you up at night, tell me. We'll change it. I may believe in how we're positioned or whatever, but the client's, emotional health is just as important as their financial health, right? So you got to, kind of bring all these things together, and it's a difficult and it's an ongoing. I believe it's an ongoing process, and we all, as again, human beings, want to make one decision, and we're done. And everything's going to be fine from here. And unfortunately, that's not always the case.
So, what should we? One of the things that I really like is you come up with these almost weekly 3-minute videos. Where can the folks see to get that information?
My email is jkerr, Jkerr, at kerrfinancial.com. Send me an email or go to the website, kerrfinancial.com, sign up there. What we do is a series of videos. We try to keep it about 3 minutes. Sometimes I think Mondays was a little bit longer, just as stuff going on. And during that process, we try to educate people. Here's what's going on. Here's what I'm seeing in the market. Hopefully it's something maybe you're not reading in USA Today or the Wall Street Journal. And this is having an impact. But also in that process, try to educate people from someone who's just beginning to maybe somebody who's a little bit more sophisticated. Here's some items to take a look at and like that. Before I think you and I were speaking, I used to do a longer video, but our attention spans are so short now. Right? And there's so much content. Right? So I mean, we Zach and I at our firm, decided to kind of move this into a shorter and hopefully more impactful message.
Well, we think that's really wonderful because this is so important. So, I recognize that you look at the events and you also gauge the trends.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
So what do you think with the second half of 2020? What can we as Americans expect over the next half of 2025? Give us some good news.
Boy, oh boy, yeah. I think there is a lot of good news and some potential. Again, the big beautiful bill's done, and hopefully the impact and that spurs good things for both the middle class as well as business and everybody, right? Hopefully it empowers and uplifts our country. I think it will. But also you never know with geopolitical. Is there another thing that I think this Russia and Ukraine thing's dragged on longer than people expected, and maybe that even deteriorates, and maybe that's an impact. Another thing that I think is important on the short term for here is that since the April timeframe when the tariff scare happened, we've had a historic move up in stock prices in the U.S. And we are pretty extended. Nothing goes up forever. Mm-hmm. And when you go higher, there's clearly more risk that there's going to be a correction or a sell-off. So I think that type of volatility may return to the market, not as it was in April. I don't expect that, but you never know. And because we're up so much in such a short amount of time, from a historical perspective, it usually doesn't continue at that pace.
Balance it out.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a bell curve type of thing sometimes. And so that, no matter how good news we have anticipating, the market's already kind of priced it in. Mm-hmm. And it always does that. And the market always looks forward and tries to price things in. Sometimes it gets it wrong. But, I think that there's, some really good things in the second half that we're going to experience. How the stock prices react may be a little bit muted, only because they priced in maybe so much. But again, if we can get maybe some resolution on deficits, and maybe some maybe make some progress in reducing them and curbing government spending and like that. So those type of things I think would be additional positives for us. But again, we've had a good run, and I think there are opportunities, always opportunities, but maybe the timing of it might be tricky.
And also the value of the dollar, right?
Yes.
When you keep printing out, it declines. There was talk over the last couple of years about even are we going to have an American currency anymore, which is devastating because it should never happen. Are we going to go to Bitcoin? Are we going to go to electronic versions of I don't know what? Yeah. But it seems now that the dollar is slowly inching up again,
right,
and being competitive. And it makes sense because you have companies, corporations, coming back to the United States, making that investment. So the more money they're bringing in,
right,
the more money through the tariffs, because we brought in over $1 trillion on the tariffs, right?
Yeah.
So this is ultimately good for our currency, correct?
Yes. However, however, one of the factoids for today is in the first 6 months of 2025 have been one of the worst times for the U.S. dollar.
Ooh. Even with Biden?
Yeah, exactly.
Trump.
Yeah, but Biden before, yeah.
Because he's saying it's worse now.
It's like down on the index. There's a dollar index that's valued as a basket of other currencies. Primarily it's the euro, yen is the biggest parts of that, but there's an index, and that index is down 10% so far in 2025. Now, recently, in the last few days, the dollar has kind of stabilized. But it's not like it's the worst thing and like that. It's just I think some of the interest rate levels at other countries are more attractive, and that that's part of it. And inflation gauges are part of how currency trading is done. So there's a lot more factors in it, but I do agree with the premise that ultimately, people are going to need, the dollar, and the dollar is going to represent the strong country that we are and the strong economy that we're going to have.
Also, there's AI.
Yeah.
There's a lot of investment in AI, which I think you use a little bit.
I do. I love it.
So,
Do not fear it.
and all the people have certain fears about that, but it is going to increase productivity, right?
Right. But, and with the potential job destruction.
Right.
Ford announced earlier this week they're got the number, but a bunch of managerial positions and replacing with AI.
Really?
That was Monday's news or something like that. Yeah, that's out there. So that kind of becomes a risk of that. And you mentioned Anastasia, cryptocurrencies, and I'm not smart enough to figure that stuff out, but it's going to have a role, and I don't know, but and ultimately I do think when the U.S. is strong, both economically, military, a leader of the world, which we're becoming again, the dollar is going to be strengthened and a representative of that, I believe, too, ultimately. So, but in the short term, though, it's been a weaker dollar. But again, a lot of things going on. And, we're talking, again, cryptocurrencies have a role here, and gold. Gold has been on a tremendous run. And gold has been, I sent a text out to a client last night. Central banks across the world buying gold, crazy. This really the past year, but in the past 2 months, in very high volumes.
So you're going to think I'm crazy for saying this.
What's that?
I got into an argument with my lovely aunt over this. I said, gold is good with us, silver is good with us,
Right.
because, it's in our computers
Right.
and stuff. So she said, yeah, I invested in gold too. I said, so you got it somewhere safe? She goes, I got the certificates. So I feel good about having paper proof.
Yeah.
I like to have it somewhere that I know
the
it
physical.
exists. Nobody
The
needs to
physical,
know. I
yeah.
need the physical.
Yeah, I know you're digging in your backyard.
I actually live on hard rock.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, to invest in gold, there's so many ways of doing it now. You buy gold miners, which are kind of a proxy. But again, a gold miner is still a business. Not a very fun business. Big capital stuff, big mines and like that. But still, the stocks, kind of trade with the metal. The metal's been up. And you can buy, in the markets, exchange-traded funds that mirror gold. And, of course, you can buy coins or the bullion and like that. But like you said, please store it someplace safe.
Yeah, I like to know it's there because how do you even know it exists? It's like saying, at the treasurers, do we really have all that gold?
I don't know.
I don't know. It was discussed, and then kind of left alone. But I wonder if it's in there or not.
There are certain critics that say that's not, not all there, or been lent out, or been lent to others who need to trade it.
I'm sure Tucker Carlson's probably going to do a special important odds.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo doesn't remember.
Exactly,
The vault was empty.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. We really appreciate it, and
Thank
we
you.
also
Thank you for having me.
want to announce to our patriots that Jeffrey Kerr and his organization, you'll be seeing him from time to time because he is going to be able to provide us some great financial advice as the events occur, as our world is changing here in the United States and abroad,
Right.
to keep us abreast of good advice, because I think we really need it, especially if we're at the start of the golden era.
Hopefully,
and
yes.
we need to continue that momentum and be financially secure.
I think if you have any questions, suggestions, comments, reach out to Anastasia and Richard, or email me, as I said, or reach out to my website, like that. Happy to bring those topics back to the time.
Kerr, KERRfinancial.com.
Correct. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Pleasure being here.
Uncle Trump has one shot, one opportunity to stop the death of America. One moment with DC wit, yo. Vivek's palms are sweaty, six-big job gets heavy. There's curry on his sweater already, mom's tandoori. He's nervous, but DOT is getting order ready to drop bombs, cause he gon' got the fat with Eddie. He goes down, DC crowd cries so loud. He opens his mouth, the words you find just come out. They choking now, we the people joking now. The clock's run out, time's up, over, back. Snap back, DOGE, lock, they spin gravity. Oh, grab your rock, with he choke, he's so ready. Don't boast, make it look easy. No, he works at it, he knows, he'll push him in the... Gotta keep him alive. Stand together. Stop World War III. Make America great again.